Museveni, Bobi Wine, people of Uganda, listen to me. When a government shuts down the internet 2 days before a high-stakes election, that is not public safety, that is fear. Fear of the people, fear of the youth, fear of the truth going viral on TikTok, YouTube, X, and every live stream that can expose what happens at the polling stations. The Ugandan authorities pulled the plug. No WhatsApp, no X, no connection. But who created the conditions for distrust? When the same man has ruled for 40 years, when opposition rallies are blocked and activists are jailed, when every election trend looks like a copy-paste of the last result, people do not believe your words anymore. Yoweri Museveni is terrified. He is afraid because the African youth are no longer sleeping. They are waking up to the reality of digital sovereignty. Bobi Wine, they have cut your voice because your message is a vibration that can shatter their glass palaces. To the youth of Kampala and beyond, the internet is a tool, but your resolve is a weapon. You don't need a signal to know that the time for the elders to rest has come. This isn't just an election. It's a test of our Pan-African spirit. The revolution will not be televised, and in 2026, it won't be posted. It will be lived in the streets, homeland or death. They have banned the rights groups. On the eve of the 2026 election, the state-run NGO Bureau ordered Chapter 4 Uganda and the Human Rights Network for journalists to halt their work immediately. Why? They claim these organizations are prejudicial to national security. In Africa today, there is a new phrase we must learn: internet blackout democracy. From Uganda to Ethiopia, from Sudan to the Congo, too many regimes now follow the same script. Elections come, tension rises, and suddenly the network goes dark in the name of security. They pretend this is about stopping fake news, but the real goal is to stop real news from reaching the world. Museveni, you are not the first to do this. Others shut down Facebook, blocked WhatsApp, throttled Twitter, slowed YouTube until live streams died in buffering. They say they are protecting peace, yet it is always the ruling party's narrative that remains online on state TV. When independent media, rights groups, and digital activists are silenced while the government's voice keeps broadcasting, that is not fighting disinformation. That is manufacturing one official lie. To the youth watching from Kampala's streets and the diaspora, understand, whenever you see internet shutdown trending before election results, you are not witnessing stability. You are witnessing fear management. The blackout is not a sign of strength. It is the confession of a regime that cannot trust its own citizens with a simple connection. President Museveni, let us speak plainly. A leader who trusts his mandate does not fear Wi-Fi, 4G, or live streams on YouTube and TikTok. A leader who truly believes his people are with him does not order telecoms to pull the plug on an entire nation just days before voting. When you cut the internet, you are not defending Uganda, you are defending your seat. You say you are protecting national security, but from whom? From terrorists, or from smartphone cameras, from foreign agents, or from Ugandan youth going live at polling stations, filming ballot stuffing, intimidation, and ghost voters? If your security depends on darkness, then your system is built on shadows, not legitimacy. 40 years in power is already a message to Africa. Coups, crackdowns, and now a 2026 internet blackout are adding a new chapter to that story. You can switch off Facebook, slow X, and block WhatsApp. But you cannot switch off the memory of a generation that watched you silence them in real time. Power that fears the camera is power that knows it can no longer survive the light. Bobi Wine, brother, your name now travels with hashtags, protest clips, and broken microphones. They try to box you in as just an opposition candidate, but what you represent is larger. The anger of an African youth tired of 40-year regimes and elections that feel pre-decided. When Uganda's rulers cut the internet, they were trying to cut your voice, but they also proved your point. They fear the ghetto youths you sing for, the boda riders who share your clips on WhatsApp, the university students streaming your rallies on TikTok and YouTube. That is why they turn the entire country into airplane mode before the vote. They know that in the age of smartphones, ballot box tricks and midnight counting rooms are harder to hide. Understand this. Your battle is no longer only Kampala versus State House. From Ouagadougou to Lagos, from Nairobi to Johannesburg, there is a generation watching how Uganda treats you. Your courage or your silence will send a signal across the continent. If they break you quietly, many leaders will learn they can black out, ban, and beat their opponents, and the world will move on. Ugandan youth, listen closely. When they cut your data, they think they have cut your power. But you are the real internet of this nation. Long before TikTok trends and YouTube shorts, revolutions spread from mouth to ear, from street to street. Today, a blackout slows the signal, but it cannot erase your hunger for change. Do not let the blackout convince you that you are alone. The diaspora is watching, Africa is watching, the world is watching, through VPNs, proxies, and every mirror account that refuses to go dark. They can shut down the network, but they cannot shut down your conversations, your organizing, your courage. Remember this: regimes that fear young people with phones are regimes that know their time is already ticking. When a regime shuts down the internet, it is already attacking the eyes and ears of the people. But when it also orders human rights groups and election observers to halt their workdays before the vote, it is killing the witnesses. In Uganda, 2 major NGOs were told to stop operations right as the blackout began. This is not coincidence, it is choreography. Museveni, you know exactly what you are doing. You remove the cameras, then you remove the note takers. You silence the local monitors who document intimidation, disappearances, and fraud. You push out international observers or restrict their movements, and when the results arrive, you say, there was no evidence of irregularities. Of course there is no evidence, because you banned the people whose job is to collect it. To the people of Uganda, understand this playbook. When NGOs are smeared as foreign agents and threats to sovereignty right before elections, it is usually not because they are planning a coup, it is because they might expose one. Internet off, NGOs out. That is the perfect environment for the manufacturing of peaceful election results that were written long before you cast your vote. Some will say, this is not a coup, this is constitutional. There are courts, election commissions, observers. But listen to the logic of digital dictatorship. Instead of tanks on the streets, you roll out shutdown orders to telecom companies. Instead of burning ballot boxes, you suffocate live streams and data traffic. The method is modern, but the spirit is the same. Hold power at any cost. Museveni, you have simply updated the toolbox. Where past dictators stuffed newspapers and jammed radios, you now throttle bandwidth and pull the plug on social media. To Africans watching this on YouTube after the blackout lifts, do not be fooled by the smooth language of 21st century repression. Whether it is soldiers at the broadcasting house or regulators at the internet exchange point, the goal is identical. Control what you see, what you say, and what the world hears about your struggle. Changing the tool does not change the crime. When Uganda cuts the internet, bans NGOs, harasses opposition, the statements are concerned, monitoring the situation, calling for calm, carefully chosen words that protect relationships, not rights. Museveni, you have survived this long because you understood one thing. As long as you are useful in regional security, as long as your army can be deployed in Somalia, as long as you are seen as a pillar of stability, many partners will close one eye during your elections. They will sanction loud dictators they do not need and tolerate quiet digital dictators they rely on. To Ugandans and all Africans, when you hear soft diplomatic language after a hard blackout, remember this is not neutrality, it is selective outrage. If the same internet shutdown happened in a rival state, there would be emergency sessions, televised condemnations, and threats of sanctions. But because it is an ally, they call it an internal matter. Your freedom cannot depend on how useful your ruler is to someone else's foreign policy. Uganda, your story is not isolated. In Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, we have seen how outside powers praise stability, while our people live under fear, corruption, and foreign military footprints. In the Sahel, we rejected that script. In Kampala, you are now facing a different version of the same game, this time played with firewalls and shutdown orders instead of foreign bases. When the Alliance of Sahel states condemns operations that disrespect sovereignty, it is speaking from experience. We know how quickly security cooperation becomes a leash around a nation's neck. Uganda, your blackout shows another kind of leash, control of your digital arteries. Whether it is troops on the ground or fingers on the internet switch, the objective is the same: keep the system safe, not the citizen. From Ouagadougou to Kampala, the lesson is clear. If you let others define who is a reformer and who is a strong man, who is a partner and who is a problem, you will never build a truly free Africa. Our peoples must be the ones to decide that, and they cannot decide if their voices are cut off every election cycle. To every African leader watching Uganda, understand this clearly. The more you fear your people, the closer you move to losing your throne. When you copy the internet shutdown playbook, you may win one more election on paper, but you lose something far more important: legitimacy in the hearts of your citizens. Museveni's blackout will become a case study on YouTube, TikTok, and in every Africa breaking news documentary. How to rig perception without touching a ballot, cut the internet, silence NGOs, intimidate the opposition, then declare victory while fact-checkers are blind. Do you really think history will call that leadership? You walk into the arena with the cameras on, not off. But when you treat your own youth as a threat, when your first instinct is shut down instead of dialogue, you turn your country into a pressure cooker. And pressure cookers always explode. If not today, then tomorrow. If not at the ballot box, then in the streets. My message to Bobi Wine is a warning. Do not look to Washington or Brussels for your salvation. They will cheer for you on the news, but they will never sacrifice their strategic interests for your freedom. True independence means being the master of your own house. In Burkina Faso, we broke the chains of the CFA franc and expelled the foreign military because we realized that sovereignty is not a gift from the West. It is a struggle against them. Uganda must decide. Do you want to be a sovereign nation or a resource colony for the highest bidder? The shadow is long, but it disappears when the people stand in the light of their own truth. Homeland or death? Bobi Wine, you have the heart of a lion, and you have mobilized the youth through the power of song and people power. But you are facing a machine, the NRM, that has spent 40 years turning the state into a fortress. Museveni does not see your beret as a political statement. He sees it as a target. He has traded his own revolutionary past for a pair of heavy combat boots used to crush anyone who dares to walk toward the palace. If people power is only about winning a rigged vote, it will break against the wall of Museveni's generals. But if it is about reclaiming the dignity of every Ugandan, then no internet shutdown or armored car can stop it. To the youth, do not just follow the hat, follow the ideology. The combat boots are heavy, but they are worn by men who fear the very people they are paid to protect. Homeland or death? Why does Uganda go dark? Because the infrastructure of our communication is still controlled by those who fear the people. This is digital colonialism. We rely on foreign platforms and foreign cables, and when the local puppet gets scared of a trending hashtag, he turns them off. In the Sahel, we are learning that we must reclaim our digital space. True independence in the 21st century means having the power to keep your people connected, no matter what. Museveni thinks that by cutting the fiber, he can cut the truth. He is wrong. He has only succeeded in proving that he is a dinosaur trying to survive in a digital age. To the VPN warriors, the tech-savvy youth, and the Generation Z of Uganda, your skills are now more important than your ballots. You are the digital frontline. Every time you bypass their firewalls, you are committing an act of revolution. In Uganda, you have a man who has ruled since 1986, a time when Bobi Wine was only 3 years old. President Museveni is now 81, seeking a 7th term to potentially rule for half a century. This is not leadership, it is a monument to the past. These elders are terrified of the youth because they no longer understand them. They see a mobile phone and they see a weapon. They see a digital generation and they see a threat to their stability. When a leader stays for 40 years, he stops serving the people and starts serving his own legacy. He begins to treat the nation like a private inheritance to be handed to his son. To the youth of Uganda, you are not too young to lead. You are exactly the age that the world needs right now. If the pharaohs refuse to step down, the sun will still rise, and the shadows of the old world will eventually vanish. Homeland or death? We know the pattern. When the numbers don't match the reality of the streets, the masks come off and the iron fist appears. I want to send a direct message to the Ugandan security forces. Who are you shooting? Look at the faces in the crowds. Those are your brothers. Those are the mothers who sell tomatoes in the market to pay for the very boots you are wearing. President Museveni will stay in his fortified bunker in Entebbe, but you will be the one standing in the heat and the dust. Do not follow orders that require you to spill the blood of your own kin for the sake of one man's 7th term. In the Sahel, the army and the people are becoming one body. That is our shield. In Uganda, the army is being used as a wall to protect the palace from the people. President Museveni is willing to burn the house down just to keep the key to the front door. This is not leadership, it is economic sabotage. Every hour the internet is off, mobile money, the lifeblood of African trade, is paralyzed. The mother trying to pay for medicine, the student trying to pay for school, the merchant trying to secure a shipment, they are all victims of one man's ego. People often ask me if Bobby Wine is the new Thomas Sankara. I tell them, Sankara was not made by a red beret or a protest song. He was made by his actions. He was the man who said, "He who feeds you controls you." He planted millions of trees, he vaccinated millions of children, and he dared to stand up to the global debt collectors. In Burkina Faso, our power does not come from a server in Silicon Valley. It comes from the mobilization of the people, the volunteers who defend their own neighborhoods. This is what I call the sovereignty of the street. It is the realization that a nation is not a collection of data points. It is a collection of souls. When the 2026 election results are manufactured in the dark, the street becomes the only legitimate parliament. Bobby Wine, if you want to win, you must lead the people beyond the ballot box. You must show them that their power did not vanish when the routers were unplugged. The polls in Uganda open in less than 48 hours. The wires are cut. The observers are banned. The digital world has been told to look away. The stage is set for a crime against the sovereignty of a nation. But let me tell you something that the aging pharaohs and their imperialist masters always forget. The final chapter of Africa is not written in a dark room in a palace. To President Museveni, you can stop the data, but you cannot stop the clock. Every minute you spend in a forced blackout is a minute that fuels the fire of the next generation. You are no longer fighting a political party. You are fighting time itself. To Bobby Wine, stand firm. Remember that a leader is only as strong as the people who carry him. Do not trade your revolutionary heart for a seat at a table built by your oppressors. To the youth of Uganda, you are the descendants of kings, warriors, and revolutionaries. Do not let an 81-year-old man with a kill switch tell you that you are invisible. In the Sahel, we have shown that the old Africa, the Africa of begging, of fear, and of 40-year reigns, can be defeated. We have achieved food self-sufficiency, we have reclaimed our minds, and we have looked the imperialists in the eye and said, no. Uganda, the internet may be down, but the fire is rising. Assume your revolt. Do not be pitied. We are no longer the forgotten peoples. We are the masters of our destiny. From Ouagadougou to Kampala, one message remains. La patrie ou la mort, nous vaincrons. Homeland or death, we shall overcome. Victory belongs to the people.
Thank you, John. Trump imposes sweeping 25% tariffs on nations trading with Iran amid deadly protest. Crackdown by Juba Global News Network, JubaGlobal.com, Washington, D.C. January 13, 2026, in a bold escalation of economic pressure on the Islamic Republic of Iran, U.S. President Donald Trump announced on January 12 that any country conducting business with Tehran will immediately face a 25% tariff on all trade with the United States. The move, declared via a post on Truth Social, comes as Iran grapples with its most widespread and deadly anti-government protests in decades, with security forces accused of killing hundreds of demonstrators and imposing a near-total communications blackout. Effective immediately, any country doing business with the Islamic Republic of Iran will pay a tariff of 25% on any and all business being done with the United States of America, Trump wrote. This order is final and conclusive. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The announcement lacks detailed implementation guidelines, official White House documentation, or clarification on the legal basis, potentially relying on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, AIEEPA, which Trump has used for previous broad tariffs. No exemptions or thresholds for doing business were specified, leaving open questions about whether the tariffs target only goods, services, or specific sectors like oil. The White House has not elaborated, and administration officials declined immediate comment. This tariff policy directly targets Iran's key trading partners, who have helped the regime circumvent long-standing U.S. sanctions. China remains Iran's largest partner, purchasing the bulk of its oil, often through intermediaries, and shadow fleets accounting for an estimated 90% fixes or top-up or more of Tehran's petroleum exports in recent years. Other major traders include India, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, Turkey, Iraq, and to a lesser extent, Russia and Brazil. Combined, these nations facilitate billions in annual trade with Iran, providing critical revenue amid economic collapse driven by inflation, currency devaluation, and resource mismanagement. Analysts warn the tariffs could severely disrupt global supply chains. For China, already navigating fragile post-trade war relations with the U.S., the measure risks reigniting tensions. Beijing's embassy in Washington swiftly condemned the move, stating that tariff wars and trade wars have no winners, and vowing to protect its interests. India, which doubled down on Russian oil purchases earlier in 2025 despite U.S. pressure, faces renewed scrutiny. Trump previously imposed 50% duties on Indian goods over similar issues. The UAE, a key U.S. ally hosting American military assets, could see complications in its balancing act between Washington. The tariffs arrive against the backdrop of Iran's intensifying domestic crisis. Protests erupted in late December 2025, initially over skyrocketing food and fuel prices, water shortages, and economic despair. They quickly morphed into calls for regime change, with demonstrators chanting against Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and burning symbols of the Islamic Republic. Human rights groups report grim figures. The U.S.-based human rights activist news agency HRNA has verified at least 572 deaths, including protesters and security forces, and over 10,600 arrests. Norway-based Iran Human Rights estimates 648 fatalities, including children, with some sources suggesting the true toll could be far higher due to the internet shutdown that began January 8. Security forces, including the IRGC and Basij militia, have deployed live ammunition, tear gas, and mass detentions. Report described hospitals overwhelmed, morgues overflowing, and doctors threatened against treating injured protesters. Supreme Leader Khamenei has ended any notion of restraint, labeling demonstrators ruiners who must be suppressed decisively. Trump's tariff announcement follows days of escalating rhetoric. He has warned Iran against further killings, stating the U.S. is locked and loaded and prepared to intervene militarily if necessary. Briefings to the president have included options for targeted airstrikes, cyber operations, and support for protesters. On January 11, Trump revealed Iranian officials contacted him about negotiations, but cautioned that ongoing violence might force action first. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt emphasized diplomacy as the priority while affirming Trump's readiness to use force. The economic measure serves as an immediate, non-military tool to isolate Iran further. By penalizing third-party trade, it aims to choke off revenue streams that sustain the regime's proxy activities and domestic repression. Iran's economy, already battered by sanctions, faces worsened shortages. Food comprises a large portion of imports, and further restrictions could exacerbate hardship for ordinary citizens. International reactions have been swift and varied. European allies have condemned the protest crackdown, but expressed concern over unilateral U.S. tariffs that could affect transatlantic trade. Russia and China, both with stakes in Iran, have offered implicit support to Tehran while criticizing Washington's approach. Israel's government, viewing any weakening of the Iranian regime favorably, has remained largely silent on the tariffs but maintains high alert amid regional tensions. Critics argue the policy risks backfiring. It could rally nationalist sentiment in Iran, strain relations with key partners like India and the UAE, and provoke retaliatory measures from China. Legal challenges loom as the U.S. Supreme Court weighs cases questioning the breadth of Trump's tariff authority under IE. As protests persist despite repression, and Trump weighs next steps including potential meetings with Iranian opposition figures, the 25% tariff stands as a clear signal the U.S. will use economic leverage aggressively to pressure Tehran, whether it hastens regime change, forces concessions. And for watching Juba, Global News Network delivers independent coverage of global events, or sparks broader confrontation, remains uncertain in this volatile moment for the Middle East. Stay informed with updates at JubaGlobal.com. And I am Jasmine, and you can also call me Brooke. Please